Welcome to the Desert OnDeck podcast with your hosts, Santi'd and Zaydar.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Desert OnDeck series podcast. Obviously, football season is over with an underwhelming Super Bowl, but that shows that it's baseball season. Spring training is just around the corner, and boy, me and my co-host could not be more excited. My name is Santi'd, and I'm here with my co-host Zaydar as we get ready for spring training. And tonight we're gonna kick off our first episode. We're gonna talk about what's going on within the league, around the league. But before we get to that, we do have to say our condolences to the Gore family. Terrence Gore, who was a member of 3 World Series teams, one of which including our Los Angeles Dodgers, but you might only know him for his run with the Kansas City Royals. 3-time world champion and really fast son of a gun. Our condolences go to his family. But with that out of the way, I think it's time to learn what's been happening around the league. So, Zadar, would you like to talk about that?
Oh yeah, thank you, Santi'd. So right now we got Framber Valdez, former ace from the Houston Astros, signing in Detroit for a very lucrative deal, but short-term contract. We've seen a lot of those lately. And
Yes.
of course, the question is, with Framber suddenly going to Detroit, another ace lefty, what'll happen to Skubal? You know,
Yes, and
because
obviously, oh, you go.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because he recently won that arbitration deal, record breaking for like $32 million. So the question is Detroit finally going to trade him or is he going to stick around?
Well, if I'm Detroit, I'm gonna rock it out with Skubal. Maybe try and hold him to the deadline. But I think this Detroit team has a really good lineup and a really good World Series contending team. I mean, it's going to be tough to face to go against up against the Dodgers, but the Blue Jays sent him 7 games. So and obviously, I mean, the starting rotation is just nasty. Tarek Skubal and Framber Valdez, obviously two lefty aces, and I mean those two could carry a rotation by themselves on the team with each other. Other pitcher that we know of is Jack Flaherty, and Jack Flaherty is a former friend of the LA Dodgers. He was pretty decent this time there. Kind of had a little off season this year, but you know, though it's time for comebacks. Flaherty is a good pitcher, and I feel like this Tigers team has a great young, a great thing to work with. The offense is already great. With Skubal on the other hand, I don't know whether he goes to, whether they hold on to him or, maybe trade him. And if Zadar, if you think they trade him, where do you think he's gonna get traded to?
I think if he gets traded, he's going to be traded to probably, I think he could get to the Dodgers. I mean, they're always willing to go grab another ace, and with somebody of his caliber, even with his arbitration deal, they're willing to take that because they know that if he can get familiar, maybe they can try and re-sign him in the offseason. That's just the LA thing to do at this point. The other teams, I could see the New York Mets taking a stab at it. Steve Cohen's always looking to do something out there, you know.
Yes.
And I think that Detroit might be willing to trade him and grab even more, like maybe minor league depth pitching, because Framber could be the backup ace for Tarek once he leaves. That might be their idea, is they'll get Framber to replace him almost once Tarek and his contract expires. So
hmm
I
Which
would be surprised if he gets traded to some contender.
Yes, which totally makes sense. And honestly, we heard rumors of Skubal possibly being traded during the winter meetings. Dodgers had a great talks with the Tigers over over a trade for Skubal, and from some of the people that we heard, Tigers were interested in Emmett Sheehan, who is the young pitcher for the Dodgers. Obviously, deal didn't come through. Um, but obviously, it seems like the Tigers are looking for a young pitcher to possibly get to that ace level. So that's definitely something to look for. So any teams I could see trying to trade for Scuba would have to be teams with a good young pitchers that probably that that contended teams would be willing to give up. And So that's why I
Yeah.
think the Dodgers are definitely up there in the front, and definitely the Mets too. Mets have a good amount of pitching arms that they could possibly give away, but they did just trade for Freddie Peralta. But hey, Steve Cohen, man, that man could do anything. He's made of money, so it's gonna be very interesting to see this season. This is gonna be a very interesting season.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it also, I think, depends how far the Tigers lineup carries them. Because, if they can't make it past the All-Star game, and if the Guardians take another surge the way they've been doing for the past decade, you know, like we could see the Tigers selling at the deadline. It is possible. Not
Yes,
likely, but possible.
yes. Um, Tigers have definitely been a very interesting team over the last couple of years. Um, they haven't really been that big in free agency until like recently, where they gave Jack Flaherty a pretty decent contract. They of course gave Gleyber Torres a contract, and he's been nothing but great for them. And they also gave Framber Valdez this big, $32 million a year salary for 3 years. um Tigers, but they're like I've said before, they really weren't moving like this, especially after the Javier Baez disaster of a contract. Um, so it's very interesting to see how Detroit's moving. Detroit's moving. It's very clear they won't be getting back Skubal this postseason, especially with them trying to only pay him $19 million in arbitration, and them of course being way off for a talent of Skubal's caliber. So obviously it's going to be very interesting, not to see what the Tigers do maybe post at the trade deadline, but to possibly see what they do in future seasons.
Yeah, and especially because you're looking at Framber, he only signed a short-term contract. So you only got him for 4 years, unless you can get him to an extension. But given that salary, I think it'd take quite a chunk of cash in order to get a long term on Framber. And also, we're not seeing a lot of long term deals anymore. So I think even if Skubal walks, I believe that on the pitching, unless they can get a really solid pitching farm system, maybe like even top five pitching farm, I think Framber's contract is their window for contention right now.
Yes, I feel like you bring up a good point there, and this is going to get off topic of the Framber Valdez and Skubal thing. Not a lot of long-term contracts have been given out this offseason, especially after the big craze for long-term contracts that were being given out over the last couple years. Of course, we got Judge with his huge contract. Of course, Otani and Yamamoto with their big, you know, long-term contracts. At the beginning of this postseason, at the beginning of the season, seemed like Tucker and Bichette were guaranteed to get long-term deals, but in the end, they only got 3-year deals. What do you think has been causing this, sudden change from front offices to not be determined, not be committed to players long term?
Well, it's looking like teams are starting to realize the effects of a long-term deal, right? So we saw I mean, there was that disaster of a Chris Young deal the Orioles had 15 years ago, and that was like the beginning of the new era. And it seems like now the teams are actually starting to get old with their players. Like you're seeing Giancarlo Stanton, even though he's still good, he does have injury history as he ages slowly. So you're seeing these players are getting older, and now that teams are realizing that in that latter half of these contracts, they're not quite performing, they are starting to be more careful, and all of a sudden they're hesitant to sign people, which I think you do want to sign guys like Tucker, the longer term deals, but of course that trying to only give out short term high value contracts per year, I think that limits certain teams that could otherwise be able to at least have a hand in contention. Like you see the A's and the Pirates starting to open up their wallets just a little bit, but they can't go high value contracts that teams like the Dodgers can, you know? And so I think that's part of what's causing the high deals, but I'm not sure how much I like it. What do you think? You like the short term high AAV or the long term contracts?
As if I'm a team, I'm loving them because let's say team especially with the opt outs, a lot of these short term deals have opt outs in them. Obviously, from the start, it didn't seem like the players did not want these short-term deals. They wanted long-term deals, and obviously the teams have wanted these short-term deals. And from a team standpoint, I really do like these short-term deals. I really do, because if a player is bad for like maybe a year and then has a comeback years, you don't really. It's like not that much of a drop in the bucket for short-term, you know, which is the opposite with a long-term deal. Obviously, with I'll prove an example. Anthony Rendon signed a long-term contract back in 2020, has barely been on the field for the Angels, and even when he's on the field, he's obviously doing way more than playing baseball. He's more busy talking about how much he hates baseball and beating up fans in the stands. But obviously, that right there is a sign to teams that, oh, maybe we should be more careful with who do we give these long-term deals to. And it's not like teams haven't been willing to not give players long-term deals this offseason. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. earlier this year finally signed a long-term contract extension with the Blue Jays, of course. Merrill also signed a long-term contract extension. The A's have been going really all in on contract extensions, but this shows there's a difference in these compared to the free agents, is that the players that they are extending are young talents that are going to bloom, and these contracts usually will probably extend through their like age 32 seasons, which is where their peak is. So um I think that's why, and mainly some of the people on the free agent market this year were near the older age. So I think that's why if I'm a team, I'm a huge fan of these shorter term high AV contracts.
I see what you mean. I mean, I think this probably the Cubs' perspective on this is that they took their shot at Alex Bregman last offseason and they missed out on it. But because he signed that short deal and didn't even had an even better season with the Sox, he was able to come back to Chicago, and that's how he got his large deal. And love him or hate him, I know as a Dodger fan, I'm not the biggest fan of him. Still have PTSD from
Yep, you
that
get rid of him.
2017
Yep,
series, yeah. But
yep.
I see I like the Cubs' perspective on this is they'll be like, all right, we didn't get him, but since he signed a short deal because nobody wanted him long term, we were able to get him 5 years, which I think, given the free agent deals this offseason, 5 is like on the cusp between short term and long term at this point, you know.
Yes.
But yeah,
Um, Along with that, that also really did screw over the Red Sox. Alex Bregman signing to the Cubs, and obviously, we've seen the fallout of that coming from the whole Devers deal. It's looking way worse for the Red Sox the more and more time goes on, which is crazy because no one from the Devers deal I don't think is on the team anymore. You could probably do your research on that, but they just traded one of the pitchers. I forgot his name. I don't know if it was Kyle Harrison or the other guy, but they just traded him to the White Sox, right? White Sox building a good core right there. They're not a contender, but man, they could be a fun team to watch this year. Um, Red Sox, they made a move recently. Would you like to talk about that? The Red Sox have made a move.
yeah, they got in a six-player deal Caleb Durbin, Rookie of the Year finalist from the Milwaukee Brewers. And Durbin, I think he's received a bit too much hate from some people. He's really he was the starting third baseman for the best team in the sport, and he's really just a solid player. He's a stud. He's going to become a star as he gets older and more experienced. So I feel like the the Red Sox, because earlier they got Wilson Contreras over from St. Louis.
Yes.
Now that they've taken Caleb Durbin, they're really starting to like almost restack this roster in a way that can try and replicate the way it was when Devers was still their third baseman. But of course, Durbin is a better fielder, but that's beside the point, you know?
Yes. I think the Red Sox have obviously done. I think they've done plenty to help bolster the lineup there. And the AL East is looking like a very scary division besides the Rays. But even then, the Rays have Junior Cabanero on that team, and that man's looking like a stud. He was going crazy um, this
Yeah.
season. And obviously, the Orioles look very scary. They traded for Tyler Ward. Taylor Ward.
Hmm.
Yep. And of
Yeah.
course, they signed Pete Alonso in free agency. So Orioles getting good over there. They should have signed Framber Valdez or Ranger Suarez to that team. I feel like they really needed started pitching. Red Sox obviously they've gotten better on pitching. Pitching to me was a little bit one of their bigger issues, and of course first base and third base to me were one of their big issues, and they've obviously um, patched them up the best they can. I think Caleb Irvin, you're right. I think he's gonna be a future stud, and William Contreras is a good, now a good situation for now. I think they should have gone for Pete Alonso, but obviously I think the Orioles outbet him. I want to talk to you about this because it's been a topic I've obviously been telling you about. I've brought up a bit. The Yankees are just running back the same lineup that they had last season, and I don't really like that idea. But what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, they talked to Aaron Boone, and of course, he tried to say that they weren't running it back. But if you look at the roster, they really are. Because I think everybody in the lineup, with the exception of Anthony Volpe, because he got some sort of shoulder surgery,
Yes.
they are running back essentially the same roster. I mean, you've
Yes.
got McMahon still at third. They said they just recently re-signed Goldschmidt, so they're going to be platooning him with Ben Rice. I mean, Ben Rice is solid at first base, and they got the same catcher in Austin Wells. Judge, of course, is going to be great, and they got Bellinger back. So I think they're going to have the same lineup essentially, and they're even going to have the same bench. To be honest, they're not even going to have anybody like coming up from the farm system to be the new star because everybody's like kind of crowded in where they are. So they kind of stuck running it back this year, and it's kind of weird because last year its lineup clearly failed them. That's how they didn't make it. And it
Yes.
wasn't just lineup, it was the pitching too. But I don't get why they would run it back if it didn't work before when the rest of the division is just getting scarier and scarier. Every team is improving and the Yankees are just hoping that the same lineup comes out the same way. And I don't want to let off on the Rays too much because they're kind of like the Brewers. Talk to me about this, like how the Brewers are. I don't know. Everybody looks away from them, and then all of a sudden, like, what do they do to like really jump out of the blue and take a division every year?
Yes. The Yankees are running back the same roster, and I'll tell you this stat that I saw. The ALDS like roster that they had, the only people that are not returning to the team this year are Luke Weaver and Devin Williams, who, of course, are now on the Mets. I think the AL East is definitely a division that I feel like the Yankees are going to have to try harder in. And it's not like they had a bad lineup last year. It's just that the division's getting better. And they literally were in a tie with the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays, in my opinion, the pitching staff got better, especially with the signing of Dylan Cease. I feel like that got better. Um, you could say all you want about him, but he's a strikeout machine. And when he's in it, when he's dialed in, when he's locked in, he's unhittable. He's an ace. Um, and then of course, I don't. And of course, I think we're forgetting the biggest thing. The Blue Jays are the AL pennant winners. So that's a tough division, the AL East, and so maybe I feel like the Yankees should have added a couple more bats. I feel like they should have gone for Tucker. I think they should have really tried to go for Tucker instead of Bellinger. But not saying Bellinger's a bad option to be necessary to necessarily. Of course, LA fan. We love Bellinger here, but he's obviously not the same Bellinger that won the MVP back in 2019 on the 2017 Rookie of the Year. Um, I feel like maybe they shouldn't have given Trent Grisham that qualifying offer. Probably ate up a lot of money that could have been used, on maybe more bats. But besides that, it's not necessarily bad roster, but with how tough the AL East is becoming, probably should have, gotten a couple more bats, maybe get a couple more pitching help. So I'm not, that's why I'm not. I kind of dislike the fact that they are running back 2025's roster.
Yeah. Uh, Running it back, I always thought that was kind of a weird concept because it can't really work unless you can visibly see other teams regressing, and they're clearly not in the division. So, that's they're almost fighting with outdated weapons and outdated tactics. The rest of the world's moved on without them, and they're still trying to fight the same war.
Yes.
So, I don't know.
That's the tale of the Yankees. That's always been how the Yankees roll. Um. Well, to think about more along the league. More news outside of baseball. Super Bowl has happened. Seahawks win the Super Bowl in a lackluster game. The NBA is having the All Star game happening soon. NHL is having their season go on. World Cup is happening this year. The Winter Olympics are on this year. With NASCAR, the Daytona 500 is here with F1 starting in March 8th. So those are some things for sports fans to look out for. For us, we're obviously looking forward to spring training. Spring training is always so fun. I love watching spring training. Even when you're just watching people that you know are probably never gonna make it to the bigs, but you never know. You're gonna see some kids out there that are gonna possibly make it onto the roster. Maybe you'll buy a jersey to them one day. You never know, and I think that's just the fun of spring training. That's that's coming soon. It's gonna be great. More free agency and stuff is probably going to happen. It's really no one else in free agency, if I can remember. I think all the big agents or like big like free agents have been signed. So I think now it's just time for us to get prepared for spring training.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, spring training's coming up. They're gonna have some interesting races for prospects. You know, uh, at the same time, World Baseball Classic is coming up, so that should
Oh
be fun. So
yes.
make sure
Oh
you guys look
yes.
out for that one.
Oh yeah, that's gonna
It's
be
always
that.
fun
We're,
to
we're gonna
see.
have a lot of fun talking about that when that happens. World Baseball Classic. What team do you root for in the World Baseball Classic? I'm curious.
Of course, I root for my the good old US of A.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I like Mexico. I always want to cheer for them, and then some heritage. I also like to cheer for Team Panama because they're kind
Oh,
of I don't know. My dad's from there, so
oh,
that's
tough.
where I like to select them and just see, hope they do something.
Yep. Um, I root for Team Mexico.
Hmm.
Viva la Mexico. You already know this. Freaking big
Oh
Mexican
yeah,
pride. You Team USA is looking scary, but we will definitely talk about the World Baseball Classic in a later episode. That's warrant of its own episode right there. So yeah,
oh yeah,
I think that's basically all we've needed to talk
yeah.
about, unless I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it, and
Yes.
just hoping more happens in baseball.
Yep.
Make
And
sure we keep an eye out for the transaction list.
yes. So before we get to our outros and we thank you for coming in. Before we get to there, obviously as Dodger fans, we're gonna be biased, a little bit biased towards the Dodgers. Not too biased though. We'll keep it thing. If the Dodgers do anything wrong, we'll definitely be first to talk about it. But obviously we're here to. I'm gonna talk about some stuff that obviously it's very important to us. Obviously, Ben Rovert got claimed by the Dodgers on the waiver wire. The Cincinnati Reds sent him on waivers, and the Dodgers claimed him right back up. And obviously, they had to take someone off the 40 man, and they had to take off Bonda. And in my opinion, sayonara, Bonda. We ain't want you, man. We ain't want you. We ain't want you. So yeah, that's it. Unless anything else happened with you, anything
No, no,
else, the Dodger? No.
no, I don't think so. Bond, love you. You're a great player. I loved watching you pitch,
Oh,
but his time was
yeah.
up, and we've got back our beloved emergency.
Oh yeah. We can't forget about Benny Bicep. So we love you, Benny, and we're glad you're back. So
Catcher. So yeah,
yes, sir. I think they definitely need it because rushing's definitely gonna need a couple more years to develop. In a later episode,
definitely.
probably we'll talk about what we're gonna do with rushing, whether we keep on hold on to him or if we possibly try and get something from him. But that'll be in a later episode. I think that's all we have to say with you tonight. All right.
All right.
All right. Well,
Thank you. Thank y'all so much. Make sure to follow us, and we'll see you next time.
see you next time. Peace.
This has been the Desert On Deck podcast. Stay cool and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.